So, Huib van Buckel, welcome to Brand Growth Heroes. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you very much.
It's lovely to see you again. And you just have to show our viewers, because this is being video recorded as well today. It'll go up on YouTube later. Show our viewers your view, because I am jealous.
It's a lovely sunny day in Amsterdam.
Look at that. And is that a canal outside your window?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're so lucky.
I won't pronounce it.
No, do. Go on, just for the laugh.
The Herengracht.
Okay, I'm going to try. Herengracht.
This is like, it's a Dutch language. It's so strange.
So, Huib, you're so welcome. You're here today to talk to us all about Tenzing, which was the first natural energy drink that was launched in the UK market and is now leading in terms of growth in energy drinks, isn't it?
Yes, for a couple of years in a row now.
So tell us about how you decided to launch Tenzing. You've got a pretty illustrious career in energy drinks. Talk to us a little bit about, where you were working before, the opportunity that you saw, and how you decided to go it alone.
Yeah, so I was at Red Bull for a long time, for about 8 years. I was head of marketing for Holland, for the UK, and also for Europe for a while. And wow. To be honest, I really enjoyed it. I loved the brand, a lot of great people that work there. But at one point, I left, and I thought, I think when you start your own business, you have to kind of you have to think about, like, is there a market for something, right? You have to kind of, that, let's say, that demand in the market is the number one thing. And I really felt that there was a big demand, at least in the future, for something that was, 100% plant-based. That was kind of even before the whole plant. Now everything is plant, right? So this was like 5 years ago now. So naturalness was, of course, already starting big, but the whole plant revolution was kind of yet to begin, I feel. Which is basically, the two main worries around energy drinks have always been, and have only grown over the years. Like, it's, the artificial ingredients in there and the high amounts of sugar. So I thought I'd just tackle those two big issues and say, look, can we launch a plant-based version that has like more than 60% less sugar in there? And then I think that is a product that people will buy into. So that's how it started.
So what was it that you were seeing in terms of the consumer need that wasn't being answered by the energy drinks that were in the market when you were still in Red Bull, for example? Talk to us about the opportunity from a consumer perspective.
Yeah, so I think it's a very simple concept in that sense, where people worried about the artificial ingredients in energy drinks and the high amount of sugar. So I think those are the two key topics I wanted to tackle. So, like, it is possible to get that same boost and get that same lift purely from plants, at the same time having like significantly less sugar in there. So that was the main insight behind it.
Okay, and I have, Tenzing, a beautiful box here that you guys sent me. Thank you so much. And for all of our scaling...
Cool.
Yeah, sorry, I've got to do it this way, get used to my camera here. But for all of our scaling brands, or even, FMCG brands watching this, look at this for clarity of proposition, right? I don't know if you can see how clear this is in terms of how Tenzing, unleash the power of nature, right? All of the different benefits that you get, and, the physical properties of the product that deliver those benefits. And look at those three beautiful cans. So talk to us about the brand and the proposition, because this is just an amazing, beautiful proposition.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I think so. What was really cool, so one of the other reasons I decided not to kind of work for another big company, or I think that's also a bit of the disadvantage. You see a lot of people that, leave Red Bull because it is a cool company to work for.
Yeah.
It's very hard to find something else. So I think that is also matches that, the fun side of things. But I think for me, it was really, I wanted to start my own business also just to be my own boss. I'm never very good at having bosses. And although my bosses have been mostly great, it was more like, I just like the independence and the creative freedom. So that was one of the cool things as well in the journey, because the journey is obviously that the main insight were those two I just mentioned, right? Plant-based and low sugar.
Okay.
And then it starts like, how do you create a name and a concept? And I was extremely lucky in that sense. It's one of those, old-fashioned travel stories.
Yeah.
That I was traveling with my family, actually. Nothing to do with Tenzing, but in that time, I was just in the concept of finding a name. Name finding is, to be honest, it's the worst thing. I poor kids out there that, come after our generation, because it will even be worse. But I think, so if I wanted to have a name that was available in Europe and US, I believe in starting small, but like thinking, that it could get big. So I wanted a name that was like it crossed, and then it's like, it is just basically impossible because it's the same category as normal soft drinks, as beers. To imagine, let's say on a global scale, how many names have been taken.
Okay.
If you talk about all soft drinks, all juices, all beers. So I was really struggling. As one of those, like, there's a couple of really tough times in when starting the business, and actually finding a good name is probably one of them. And then I was really lucky. So I was traveling, and then I was in Asia, and someone told me about the Sherpa drinks. I talked about this new energy drink I was working on, and they said, well, the Sherpa drink, a really strong tea with salt. So Sherpas, for those who don't know, they live in the Himalayas, and they're most known for helping people climb Everest, or guides in Annapurna Trail, or but there are people, and they live in that region, and they drink mostly very high up in the world, and they drink a really strong tea with salt, and they drink like a lemon tea. And I had a doctor by that time who helped me, like a nutritional doctor, who helped me with a recipe I found, and I immediately actually so excited about this idea, and I called him. And I said, is this kind of a cultural thing, or does it also make sense from an energy perspective to drink this?
Right.
He says, it actually makes quite a lot of sense, because it's like a triple hit of natural caffeine, electrolytes, and vitamin C. And that then became the basis of the recipe. Okay. But also, immediately after, so I then thought, well, if it's inspired by this recipe, the name Tenzing came to me, because Tenzing was the first man on Mount Everest, together with Edmund Hillary in 1953. And my dad was always a big fan, always talking about that kind of, he loved the underdog story of, someone who came out, with very limited means and made it to the top of the world. It's a beautiful story. Mm-hmm. And Zing also means energy. And I thought, it's just like, wow, it's just it's a beautiful name.
It's meant to be, yeah.
It's meant to be. And it was one of those like nearly spiritual moments. I thought, wow, it's just great, because very often, and then, so I also, I had to register it. So I had to like go through like a trademark, one of those trademark thingies. And I asked, do I actually need permission of the Tenzing family? Because obviously Sherpa Tenzing had passed away, I think in the 70s. So I said, like, he must have family. Do I need the permission? They go, you don't need permission, because, Tenzing is a very common name there. It's like if you call your drink John, you don't have to get permission from a famous John. And I said, well, I don't think that's fair, because it was inspired by that name. So I then I found the family, contacted them, and my family ended up meeting their whole family. Aww. And it was amazing. And I now have very regular contact still. Got their blessing. They even became partners in the business. No way. So, yeah. So wow. So it's been amazing. That's one of those beautiful, like. And where are they based? There's a couple of children, and one is based in Darjeeling. So that is just actually in India, just next to the border of Nepal. And another one I speak to a lot is based in San Francisco. God, that's fabulous. Yeah. So, did that just seem like the right thing for you to do, to involve the family? Because, you didn't have to if you had their blessing. I didn't have to anyway. I didn't even need their blessing. Effectively, there's a lot of brands. Well, the thing is, a lot of brands call themselves Tenzing in other categories, right? There's there was a travel agency here in Holland. There was, there's a lot of different companies that I'm pretty sure, or I know from the family, have never asked their permission. But for me, it just felt like the right thing to do. Okay, yeah. And also, I think, it was just a great part of the journey. So you came up with this fabulous proposition, rooted in a real story, and the product attributes, in terms of the vitamin C and the salt, the electrolytes, give you this energy as well as the natural caffeine. Where does your caffeine come from? From green coffee. So that effectively means the unroasted bean. Okay. So you don't get the coffee flavor. So talk to me about, versus and what I'm trying to do here is to kind of illustrate for our listeners, there was a category that already existed, right? So energy drinks, and that was caffeine plus sugar. Yeah. And did they get their caffeine from anywhere special, or was it just caffeine? It's just synthetically made caffeine. Synthetically made caffeine. And when you created the natural energy segment, right? Was that almost like what we'd call a blue ocean opportunity, because there was nobody in there, and what you're doing is you're creating a new space within an existing category, because you have identified a place where there are no sharks swimming
in the sea. Is that what you did really here?
You'd hope so. I mean, I always feel the sharks are swimming pretty close by, you know.
Well, maybe now, but at the time, were they?
At the time, yeah, I always think, you know, at the end of the day, you know, when you hear like stories about like, or the famous start with why, or so I'm not a big fan of that theory.
No.
Although I'm a very clear purpose-driven company, and we have really clear kind of, which we'll talk about later, I hope. At the same time, I think it starts with what I would tell it. What is that product? It's the product people have to buy. It has to be relevant. It has to, at the end of the day, it has to be this famous old two things: relevant and unique, right? If it's new, but it's not relevant, then, you know, it could be new, but what's the use? And if it's extremely relevant, but it's already been done, then, you know, then you'll probably not succeed. So I think it has to be, you know, people want to, you know, it has to be relevant. And then how do you cater to that relevance? Or this is about, and how do you cater to that need is then, of course, the very difficult thing. But I think in the basis, it has to be right, and the product has to make sense.
So what happened then? You launched. Where did you launch at the beginning? And very quickly, you know, what were the phases of growth? Because you've got this wonderful expression when I talked about to you in during our prep call about, you know, super fast growth and how exciting it is with insurgent brands. And you said, hang on. You know, what we do is we've chipped away at growth. So talk to us about the phases of your growth and what you mean by chipping away at growth.
Yes, I've always thought right from the beginning that effectively you've got three different brand, you know, startups, I think, or brands, or like, you know, especially if you think about that's something that's on a shelf somewhere, like that's not digital. But you could probably say it for every brand, and it's not a very scientific analysis, but I've always thought it'd be the case. There's three options right in the beginning. No one buys you, you know, then you're basically screwed. So basically it's on the shelf and no one picks it up.
Right.
Then you've got the, like, you know, on the other end of the category, like it just flies for some reason. Very, very seldom happens. And then you've got that big middle category where, you know, some people pick it up, but you'll have to work hard.
Right.
And I think that's what we said as well. There is no, and it was actually one of the guys, an amazing guy in the UK, one of our wholesalers. And I in the beginning, all I did, I still do that. Like, what did you do? And, do you know any brands and how did they do well? And, you know, give me the secrets. And he goes, there is no secrets. You just have to chip away. You just keep chipping away. And it's always been our metaphor for, like, you know, mountain climbing. It's every day we're climbing. We have like our office called base camp. And we say, like, if we're in base camp, that means you're not climbing. So no one has to come to the office. Obviously, we don't have an office.
Oh, that's so clever.
Now. We don't have to have an office anymore. We don't have one now, of course. But I think the key is just, like, you know, it will not come easy. And I think the annoying thing is that the couple of brands and businesses that do make it quick get all the press attention, of course, or you only hear about them when they are already big, you know. So then you know, oh, where did Brewdog come from, or Fever Tree, or Nike? But then you know, on the background, they'd already be chipping away for 10 years, 15 years, right? You know. So what was it? What's the brand doing so well now?
Which category?
Oatly,
yeah. I mean, Jesus, 17, 20 years.
Yeah, they were around since the 90s or something. Obviously, they did the rebranding. But, you know, you've also, there's a couple of those really famous craft beer brands that were like craft beer brands from 100 years old. And they were just like chipping away, have a nice little family business. And all of a sudden, craft beer explodes and their business explodes, you know. So I think it is just also, it's just going, keep it. So
tell us about Tenzing then. What were the phases of your chipping away at growth? You know, if you had to chunk it into three phases, or however many phases are relevant to your business, what would you describe them as?
I think that the first phase is obviously really, really important. So when I remember I started, and the first thing I did was Google mistakes people make when they start their own business. Actually did that. I remember sitting behind my desk very well. I was like, I'm going to start now. I actually thought, I'm going to start. I didn't have a name. I had just the two insights that I said about plants and sugar. And I came on this beautiful Harvard Business Review article about going to the market early. Go to the market really, really early. And it's very well known in, let's say, tech startups, right? The lean startup, and, you know, trial and fail and try again, you know, and learn in the market. But actually not as much done in, let's say, the physical product space. But I took that to heart, and I just had like, when I created like my first, kind of blends of different kind of flavors, and different kind of fruits and different kind of plants. And there's a lot of different, flavor profiles possible. I had different designs, and I thought I want to launch Tenzing in kind of the office space, the university space, and kind of, the high end QSR. Let's say the wasabis of the world, and the pod in London. So I thought, I found Google, I went to King's College, and I found someone at Pod. So these were like three, and I thought I'll just go to them early just to check. And the reason they said it was important, and I totally subscribe to that, it's the best advice I think you can ever get as a startup. You actually test the concept, right? As opposed to asking your parents or your
Sure.
Your friends.
What did you have in hand? Describe to us what you had in hand when you went.
I just had like some bottles with the product.
Right. Did you have a board with the brand or
a board with the name? It looked really bad. But I think that's probably the charm. That's probably the good thing about it. Like I didn't even have a board. I just had my laptop open and I showed them a couple of designs. Okay. And there's some really stupid little plastic bottles.
Right.
Nothing on it. And I had little tasting things with it, and that was it. And I've just started, but this is what it looks like. And what do you think? So you test out, like, is the concept right?
Yeah.
Would they list it? Right. You can actually ask, would you list this?
Right.
And you get feedback. So it becomes a bit their baby as well, because then I got like, it doesn't look natural enough. And I said, then I remember her name was Meg from Pod. And I said, well, thank you. And we changed the design because of her remark. And then we launched, and then like 3 months later, when the product was actually launched, I phoned them and said, well, this is the flavor you like best with this design that you liked. And they all said, I'll have it. And then I thought, wow, this is so easy, because actually my background is more like in creative and marketing and not so much in sales. I thought the sales stuff is just like a piece of cake. And then literally, I didn't think I sold anything else for like another year, or like at least like 9 months. So having that initial, if I wouldn't have done that, if I wouldn't have read that article, I think I would have been in a very different place, because it's much more difficult. The principle of selling to someone, that's why it's good I don't have a selling background. I've always I hate when being sold to. It's like the classic when you get called and someone starts selling you stuff. It's just like immediate no-go, right? Yeah. So I wasn't selling it to these people. I was just like asking their genuine opinion. Yeah. And that's what people like. And we still do that to this day. And
you were making a human connection with them, right? And they were probably thinking, I want to do business with this guy because I like him. And I remember one of my bosses always saying to me, people do business with people. They do business with people that they like doing business with. And that's why if you're, a senior account manager on a grocery channel and people like you, they're going to be a little bit easier with you on the deals, no matter what anyone says.
And that's the interesting thing, that there is actually benefits of being a small company. Because the thing is, what they teach you at sales school is they teach you always think from their perspective, right? What's in it for them? But at the end of the day, if you're a sales manager for Unilever, the innovation pipeline will already be there. The marketing guys would have said, you have to sell this product to Tesco because it's going to be our campaign's going live in like 10 weeks. He's with his back against the wall. He has to sell it to them, right? Yeah. And Tesco were like, oh, what's in it for me? And then there'll be money. But for me, I can literally sit down, like, for instance, with Tesco, we have an amazing relationship. Her name's Catherine, and she's the best. And I literally go, go like, well, what do you want? And what do you want to make? And she came to our office, and we like showed her some designs. She, I hate that color. Oh, that could work. And I didn't even know we had one can there still. That's the blackberry that you have there.
This one here.
And she was beautiful. Like, let's make it into a bigger can, and let's make it this. And we actually created it together, but not from I didn't do that because that's what, the sales theory says. And I try to make her believe she created,
you did it out of human connection.
And
common sense.
Common sense. And it's because I could, and because I can change it, and because she's got great input. So I think that's the big advantage of being small.
So bringing you back to the phases then. So for that first year, you had it kind of placed in some key accounts, now that we would call them nowadays key accounts, but they were places where you knew people were going to drink this kind of product, and you were getting feedback, and it was iterative, and you were developing it. Then what was the next phase after that?
Well, I think the next phase would have been then getting a Tesco listing. Okay. So, it was same...
Straight to Tesco, no independence?
No, but I'm talking about big phases.
Big phases,
So we had a lot of other stuff in the meantime.
Yeah.
But then Tesco's holding this innovation day. I went there, and it was actually the same Catherine I remember as well. She just took a sip and she goes, I could drink this.
Okay, nice.
And I was like, really? And I was like, whoa, I was so happy, high five. Yeah. And again, that would have probably been, it was really cool. And, and we've launched there and so that would be like kind of our next phase. And then, I don't know if there isn't third, then it's like, just building distribution.
You're still in that phase now.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and I think we are now in all major retailers, actually.
So all major retailers in the UK. And what is your kind of run rate or your size, your turnover, your market value, whatever you're willing to share with us? What kind of size is the brand now?
I think in consumer value, again, 2020 is obviously a bit of a strange year. We would have been, I think, hopefully our aim was to be 3 times the size this year. But it'll be roughly this year, probably 5-6 million,
amazing.
Retail team.
And you launched when?
In 2016.
I mean, that's pretty great, right? So you say, we're chipping away at growth, but in 4 years, you're
and
one of those
5
years
now. So
5 years, but one of them was a very bad year. You're at 5 or 6 million. That's pretty good. In a really difficult category because having competitors like Red Bull or Monster, right, can't be easy. Can I ask you one question while we're still on the subject of market and category and consumer? Your consumer, do you have it the same consumer or a different consumer? In what way does it differ versus the consumer of Monster or Red Bull?
First of all, I'd say it's so hard to determine because it's we've sold millions and millions of cans by now.
Yeah. Okay.
But we don't know. It's not like a direct, direct to. So it's we don't really know. I think what we really know from, let's say talking to people, we don't do a lot of research as well, to be honest. I think there's a couple of things that we do see if we do so that we are more female skewed.
Okay.
So which I think also makes a lot of sense that we are, because I think, if you think about the classic energy drinks marketing, it's whatever, testosterone is double backflips on motorcycles. It's not like something that you're, Yeah,
it does not appeal to me, that traditional stuff at all. And this, I have to say, the other thing that this doesn't do, the reason I would drink this and I would not drink other energy drinks, is because this doesn't taste like medicine.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know the other energy drinks want to taste like medicine because from what I understand, people believe that if it tastes a bit medicinal, that it's actually going to be doing something for them. And it's almost become a category norm. Yeah,
and there's also another thing. So I remember when I started, and you have to talk. So going back to, let's say, the product development area, I found the ingredients, all the ingredients. So it's basically partly the recipe that I found, partly, and then also, a big part of science, right? Like I spoke to this guy, I still, work with him. So there's a nutritional doctor who kind of helped me with what kind of caffeine was, what everything. And then you have to go to, let's say, what they call flavor house. You have to then make it together. You have to all put it together. And I talked to a couple and I said, I want to take about 50 to 60% of the sugar out. And all of them said, what do you want to replace it with?
Yeah.
And I was like, nothing. I don't want to replace it. And all of them go, but that's not possible. And then you just saw, I think it's changed now already because you now see less sweeter drinks. And they always said it's not commercially viable to have, because everything, and it's really interesting if you look at it, whether it's, and I think it started, back in the day with orange juice and apple juices, they all have 11% sugar. So if you drink an apple juice and orange juice, there's 11% sugar, which is a lot of sugar, right? Look at an innocent. I mean, you shouldn't be drinking that stuff. My nutritional doctor said, it's like you're drinking liquid jam. Oh, it's just crammed with sugar and there's no goodies in that sugar. It's just sugar, right? Doesn't matter where that sugar comes from. So they're all at 11%. So whether it's Coca-Cola, orange juice, or Red Bull, it's exactly 11%. So also I would say in energy drinks, and the Monster is also the exact same. In energy drinks, that sugar level is not there for the energy. It's there to give you that taste expectation everyone's expecting. Mm-hmm. And we have 60% less. And when you have when you have a Coke sugar-free, they've made that sugar-free taste like that 11%. So the palate is just kind of tuned to that. And there's so much research that shows that the sugar-free stuff is even worse because one of the key reasons they say, which I'm a strong proponent of, is you create that sweet tooth.
Yeah.
So you're expecting that sweetness. And then if you don't have it, then you'll want more sweetness because your body's not getting it. So also insulin levels spike. And I think And we just said, okay, we want people to get used to less sugar. So if you drink this, and that's why it is still a bit polarizing. Some people say, oh, it's not sweet enough for me. But some people love it because you don't get that film of, sweetness over your teeth.
Absolutely. So it's quite a different product and from the other energy drinks in the market. So you don't have necessarily a really clear view of who your consumer is and how they differ versus
I would
the
say
rest of the market.
There's a couple of insights. I would say, first of all, more women buy it.
Yeah.
Because exactly their marketing is very male skewed.
Yeah.
Secondly, I would say, a bit more health conscious people. I would say also that I think that is actually quite right, although it's hard to find in that first mover group. So, the people that are open to trying new stuff, so it's that kind of, I don't know, it's really cheesy to call them trendsetters, but there is that kind of, I do believe there is actually that bit of that curve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where people are open to new stuff, open to, then there's the kind of, more fitness related group. I think just the overall health plant-based group.
Okay.
But also what we also find interesting is that it's very much what we call like the lapsed user. So it was people that used to drink energy drinks, let's say at uni, Jaeger bombing, still want that energy.
That's really interesting.
But have like stopped drinking it.
They've grown out of it almost.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Exactly. And I think a big group actually is people. There's quite a lot of people out there that don't like coffee. It's not a lot, but I don't know the numbers, but I think that is also a very big group for us. So they don't like coffee, not because they don't want the caffeine or they don't want the uplift. They just don't like the flavor.
Okay.
And they just don't like the effect it has on their, body, which some people have. And I think those people are then, they didn't want a traditional energy drinks because they don't want all that kind of, the artificial high sugars, but they do drink us. So
that's really interesting. It's a great example, actually, of how a consumer in a market is never totally different from the middle of the middle consumer of that market, but that it over-indexes perhaps on female, and it over-indexes perhaps on someone who wants lower sugar, and it over-indexes perhaps on someone who's older than they were when they were in the middle of the market.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great illustration.
It's not the reason why we made it pink, by the way.
But that's not the only pink one, because this one, for example, this one. And I'm really interested, just one last product related question, because then I want to move on to your team culture and how you manage people, because it's just fascinating. But this particular product, right, that just launched, why is the can bigger, and what is plant-based BCAA?
Yeah, so BCAA is the branched chain amino acid. So it's an amino acid, which kind of really is it's a very popular ingredient now in the gym space. So it kind of helps with energy, but also helps with diet and muscle rebuild. So we just saw that going on. There was a couple of BCAA products, but there wasn't any natural energizing drink plant-based BCAA. So that was something we launched specifically because we're having a huge, we're doing really well in gyms and climbing centers at the moment.
Right.
And that was just based on kind of demand that people said, I like my BCAA, but I want it from plants. So we found a way to get it from corn.
And it's in a bigger, can because people are doing sports. That's the kind of the sports focused skew.
Yes, it's two reasons. Basically, it's like the BCAA, funny enough, the way we source it, it's extremely expensive. So we also thought from an easy point of view, is like we didn't want the same size can that was then more expensive and people not understanding why. That's one reason. And the other reason is just like, it's in that gym space. People want a bit more energy. There is also, relatively more caffeine in there, or the same amount of caffeine because it's bigger, there's more. So it's just a bigger hit. So it's basically, if you really need to go all in, that's your product.
And that's a really nice example, actually, of price framing. And we cover this sometimes in some of the courses I do online, but it's about how the shopper and the consumer make a decision within a frame. So you've got, if you had your more expensive can exactly the same size as the original can, it would look really expensive. But if you mess with the frame, and I'm not saying that you're doing this to manipulate consumers in any way, but often if you change the size or change the weight or change how it looks, then you can play with the price as well. It's a nice tip for scaling brands out there.
It's just for us, it was also just like clarity. I think you're a small brand. People are not going to go, oh, this has BCA in it, and therefore it will be more expensive, right? We don't have the budgets to explain that all. So, funny enough, per ml, it's actually still cheaper. So we're not kind of tricking anyone indeed. But it's just kind of, it's bigger, therefore
more value for money.
It's more powerful, and therefore I will pay a bit more.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so something I'm really excited to talk to you about and share with all of our listeners. Talk to us about how you do people and culture? Because there's a number of different things that you do that really, I really enjoyed listening to when we were doing our prep call. Your flat structure, the idea that people choose their own boss or coach, and even that you went as far as choose your own salary. And that didn't necessarily turn out how you wanted it to. Talk us through that.
Yeah. So interestingly, I remember when I started, I said, the two reasons I started, I would say, because I saw this opportunity and I thought it was great to do something. And I think, funny enough, they always say young people want to do good for the world. But I think actually when you get a tiny bit older, then you want to do something good, because it's like they think, oh, there's more to life than a career. So I wanted to do something that was good and has a positive impact. So that was one reason. I also obviously saw a market that could have a positive impact. Mm-hmm. And secondly, I just want to be free and independent. Okay. Like I said, I don't like why is there a manager there? Is it to check if you're working? I mean, I've always hated that principle.
I can see the frustration in your face there and your voice.
Convincing managers of mine, especially with creativity, it's like, I think I have a good idea and someone goes, nah, it's like, oh, well, let's try it. Or, so I've always kind of not liked that. And again, I must say I've had some amazing bosses, some less so, but so it wasn't ever the boss's fault. I just didn't believe in that structure.
We won't dig into your childhood psyche here at all.
No, exactly. So then I remember, I thought, okay, I can start my own business, then I'll be free to do whatever I think is best. But then, if then my team has to listen to me, then only one person wins. So that was how can we create a culture where everyone just decides and everyone is just their own kind of boss and their own leader within their kind of in their field. So that was the basic insight behind. And then we started, and I thought it's really quite nice because it's very difficult. And I read a lot of books about it. And then I went to other companies that are trying the same things. And I think that it's very difficult once you've got a big organization to change that into kind of a flat structure. Okay. But we had the perfect kind of playing ground, because in the beginning it was just me, and then we hired someone, and then we took someone else, and slowly one at a time, and now we're 13 people. So I think,
how does it work? Talk to us concretely, in concrete terms.
Yeah.
What's it like for someone working in your business?
Well, it starts off with the inside, in the beginning. It also has to do with the fact that I don't like being managed, but also don't like managing. And managing in the sense of, hey, Fiona, you said you do this. Have you done that already?
The answer would be
waste the time. No. Well, it's your fault or whatever. You do it. It's your responsibility, not fault. But it's your responsibility. You go. I'm not going to check, right? I think checking on people is just the worst thing. Of waste of time. So and I think also the more you check, the less independent, the less powerful you become, right? So it's this vicious circle that you get into. So, but then it does. But not if you have a flat structure. You still have to have a structure of sorts. So that was my first kind of insight. In the beginning, we just let everyone do their thing. And then it's you need some kind of way. How then you decide a salary, for instance? Or how do you make key decisions?
So how does it work?
So first of all, it starts with, we realized, once we got to a certain size, above 6 or 7, that you do need some kind of structure. So then we said, look, it is good to have a coach in your team who helps you, develops you, sets your commitment. So we don't talk about targets. We talk about your own commitments.
Nice.
I really believe in wording as well. I also we never say consumer, for instance. Like consumer. It's from the principle of they're not put on the search consumer. So just they're people, hopefully they'll drink that, like our product. So I think so that's the same with kind of our team. We have coach, and you choose your own coach. So you come in, you choose your own coach. We give you a coach in the beginning, or like a guide in the beginning, and then after 3 or 4 months, you get to choose your own coach. Could be anyone in the business, and you can change them as well if you don't like them after a year. So it hasn't ever happened, But I think what's cool about that. So we had just one. Our latest, person who joined Team Tenzing is Belle, and then she chose Katie. And Katie was actually really thrilled because the first person that she got chosen as a coach, which is really, really, I thought was also such a cool moment.
Yes,
because
lovely.
It's not no, now this is your boss. I got chosen, So it's actually, it becomes an honor to become
So is your coach your boss then? So it's not necessarily your line manager. So if you're marketing, you don't necessarily have a coach who's in marketing. It could be anyone in the business.
So I think, within your responsibility, you're responsible. Even you don't have to sign that off with your coach. I mean, there is obviously sign off things, right? So let's say, I'm responsible in the business, at the end of how this creative product will look. If we have a new can design, someone is responsible for that, but I do sign that can design
Sure.
off.
Or the TV ad, your amazing TV ad.
Yeah, so the TV ad, I would work together with that because that's something I like to do. So everyone has their responsibility, but there is like little sign-off things. There's no big process in place. It's just like logical if those things happen. But I think the main thing is, of course, around, also like, who coach you, how's your salary? So the salary is then decided. We just actually did the round. We're actually in the middle of it now, yesterday and today. So what we also do, actually, just another thing, which works extremely well. We have like speed feedback sessions. So to make sure you get enough feedback, which you normally get from your boss, you get feedback only 5 minutes, but from everyone in the team. And it's beautiful because I remember like it's so difficult, how in the big companies they have whole courses of how giving feedback, and because we integrated it into our business straight from the beginning, everyone's just very comfortable giving and receiving feedback. Like you have like a 1 to 5, so 1 is could do much more, 2 is could do more, 3. So I even got like someone just said, I'm going to give you a 2 on that one yesterday. Someone in the team. And in fact, I thought actually that was so special. The fact that they had no problem giving me a 2.
Yeah.
Right, and how tough that could be to like especially if there's like a boss type character to just no one even like normal bosses don't even get feedback from their team, right? It's only like sometimes from your peer, or sometimes very or
they don't ask for it.
No, they don't ask for it, and I think so. It's just so integrated that it always comes. We always come out very energized. So that's really once a quarter, so that you get your feedback and you can, and then based on that, and at the end of the year, you get your on 4 leadership score. So we define leadership within Tenzing as the ability to shape the business, to connect with others, to develop yourself and others, and to deliver on the things that you said you would, to help other people deliver. So those are the 4 key things, and then you get a score of 1 to 5 from the team, and then from that score, your salary is then kind of automatically decided. And to be honest, like, it's a process, right? Because we were just discussing it this morning, and sometimes you go like, oh, that person actually did quite a lot, but maybe didn't shine through as much, especially now in this Zoom era where you can't see each other that closely. So even that, it's not like a perfect system, to be honest.
Sure.
But I think what I've really enjoyed now in the, because I know a lot of other startups do I never check on my team if they're working, or on the Tenzing team. I don't even want to say my team. I always want to say the Tenzing team. But because we were so independent, we were perfectly set up for this whole Zoom era and lockdown era, because everyone's just at home and everyone's just doing their thing. Like there's not a second that I don't trust that everyone is like, and if they don't have a good day and they're not doing one thing today, well, that's fine.
Talk to us about how when you decided to let everybody set their own salary, how did that go?
Yeah, it was based on a wrong psychological principle. I realized looking back, it was quite tough for me because it was one of those existential crisis moments where I thought, last year we thought, just everyone decide their own salary. And we said up front, this is the pot that we have. So that pot is then decided based on inflation, based on how we did as a business, based on our cash flow. And we said, this is the pot, and then everyone can decide. But that didn't work at all, because I don't think, like, from a psychological perspective, you're not going to say, well, I did amazing, but Harry over there, he deserves more than I do, so I will just then take a hit, knowing that he will then get more. It just didn't work. And I read too little about it.
It's about aversion to loss, isn't it?
Yeah, so that kind of just didn't work, and I think that backfired quite.
But still, I just, kudos that you tried it. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And you came up with a solution that is working now. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it sounds like you've got a wonderful structure, a wonderful culture. And, I have to say, I would have loved to have had a boss like you in my lifetime when I was in company, because really, I don't think I've ever had a boss who has asked me for feedback in a genuine manner when they weren't actually forced to by the appraisal system. That bit at the end. Now, can you give me feedback? Or a 360 that was issued by HR. Or they might have said, well, is there anything I can do better? But do they really want to hear? Not sure they did. So it sounds like you do really want to hear, and I think that's wonderful. Yeah. The last thing I wanted to go through, because I know that you've got a sharp stop soon. During our prep call, we spent a lot of time and having a bit of fun, realising that we both get incredibly frustrated with some of the marketing management and big marketing myths that are peddled out there by big names such as Mark Ritson or Simon Sinek, who you mentioned at the beginning. Are you happy to share some of our debunking some of these myths together now with to our listeners and tell us about the ones that really frustrate you?
Yeah, there's a couple. So funny enough, I always think, so it's very difficult to, never listen to advice, really. I think because most of these, I think people forget that, I'm not saying anything detrimental about them, but, these people have their own businesses and their own products that they have to sell. And it's just so complex to launch a business. There's not one thing that you can do to make it work. Mm-hmm. So, but that doesn't sell any books or sell any courses, does it? It's very complex. There's thousands of things you have to get right, and I'll just try and name them. And these thousand things could be very different per category and all that kind of stuff. So they say these big things that just, why did Simon Sinek's thing work? Start with why. It just sounds great. It's a great product. It's a great line, but it's obviously zero truth to it.
So you don't believe that Apple started with why, for example?
Of course not. So I think he says that in his talk. He said, Apple didn't ask themselves how to create a great product. They said, we want to change the world. We want to and that's not true. That change the world tagline Chaya Day came up with that. And I heard Steve Jobs, there's like a whole stories online. He hated the line, so he didn't even like the ad. But when they started, you can read it in the book. It's just not true because, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak mainly, was just like an amazing, beautiful computer geek who loved building
the
amazing
product.
computers.
It was all about the product.
It was all about the products. And it's just not very, the other computers are clunky, and we want something that's consumer friendly and that people can that people can work on. That's what they said. That's literally what they said. They didn't start with, they didn't say, okay, how can we change the world for the better? Should we start with self-help books? Or should we start with, meditation courses? Hell no, let's build a computer. It's just not true.
Completely. Well, I'll be really transparent with you. The reason I started this podcast, and actually, if anyone wants to listen back to my very first episode about 18 months ago, probably 20 months ago now, and I was very careful with the wording because I wasn't potentially as brave as you are to come out there and say, I don't believe this, it's all bollocks. But I said, I'm not going to talk only about why people, the purpose behind why people start their brands, but also the what and the people, the product, the people, the promise, because it's not just, and the process, the way in which they do the job they're setting out to do, they do it differently. It's not just about the why. There's so many more reasons.
What does he say? He says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. It's just not true at all. And it's like, and funny enough, I think, especially if you think about us. So we've said from the beginning, though, I'm not saying that's not important to have a purpose and have a clear thing, because I think what it does for me is that keeps me going. So we said we're an energy from nature for nature. So from January on, we'll be completely carbon neutral. We invest a lot in, we had a clean air tracker. So we love to run. So let's say if it was chosen the number one app that will change your life in 2020 by Men's Health. It's an app that you work on through Strava. You run through London and you see how clean the air is. So you can map the cleanest air. So we're trying to do those kind of things that actually help runners dodge pollution. And we're not doing any footprint ourselves. But do people buy us for that reason? I don't think so. No. I think people buy us because they need an uplift. Don't feel like all the sugar or all the artificials. This Tenzing can looks quite cool. Let's try it. Not people going to go like, who's started with why on the
Absolutely. And that's not to say that there aren't products out there, and increasingly so, that are started by people because they do have they want to start a product that is going to change the amount of disposable plastic containers for cleaning products, for example, and then they're doing concentrated cleaning products, etc. And it definitely comes from the why, but it's not all successful products that start with why. And I think that's the main message here, isn't it?
I think, at the end of the day, if you just start with why, that will not be enough. I think that's I've done talks somewhere and literally that's why I think I get quite, emotional about it, because it actually puts people on the wrong path. I've literally had people come to me after a talk and when I wasn't so vocal about not starting with why, and they were like, I've got a really brand and it's about love more. And then I said, what's the product? Oh, I don't know that yet.
I had a situation with that recently, a mentoring call with somebody who had started a conversation, who wanted to start a brand, to start a social conversation about a particular problem in society. And it was a wonderful brand and it looks wonderful, but they haven't yet started working on the product. They don't know who the consumer target is and they don't know what needs they're satisfying. They just wanted to build a brand to have a platform to discuss something that's a difficult discussion. And I said, it's all about what you want, but what about what the people you're going to be selling to? What about what they're looking for? And he hadn't thought that through yet. Last thing, Mark Ritson always says that only big brands can win and that loyalty is not important when you're launching a brand. No, he doesn't say when you're launching a brand, but he says that brand loyalty is not important.
Is that on Byron Sharp who says the loyalty?
Mark Ritson said it as well. Says it as well.
Yeah.
What do you believe about those two things?
Well, I'm a big Mark Ritson fan. To be honest, I don't know, but I think we're connected on LinkedIn. I think I love it, like how he talks. And
I know, it's amazing.
How
amazing.
outspoken it is, but just because he's outspoken doesn't mean he's right.
Yeah.
I think the key element. I remember I was actually doing a talk somewhere, and then someone quoted Mark Ritson and saying, "But yeah, it's really tough for Tenzing because you guys will never get big." Because Mark Ritson says, "If you're small, you'll never get big." And I said I couldn't have said that. Then I looked, actually, and he does. This is number one rule. Which then I think if you're small, you can never get big. Maybe I just don't understand this rule because that would mean that there would never be any companies in the world ever. Because,
Exactly.
So what happened to Fever Tree and Red Bull? Monster, for instance, Monster started 15 years ago. If you were to buy, in 2000, if you go to the stock markets and buy some shares, you would have been best off in all the world to buy Monster shares.
Really?
Monster was the fastest growing stock in 2000 from 2010. Better than Apple, better than Amazon, anything.
Wow.
So they just grew like crazy and didn't do any advertising, nothing. So they came out of nowhere and are now huge.
Yeah.
Red Bull came out of nowhere and are now taking, giving Coca-Cola a run for their money. So it's a strange thing, which I don't totally understand. And I think the only thing, I think you said it, which is probably good insight, is, they cater towards a established, they cater their product towards
these speakers, their clients are big
Yeah.
clients, big multinational clients. So it works for them to give that message.
Not to say that, some of these insights are right, because it is tougher to make it, but it's not impossible, of course.
Listen, Huib, we're going to have to leave it there because I know you've got to go and you've got builders and all sorts of people as well as meetings. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey with us. I know you say that you chip away at growth and maybe that's true, but I still do think it's hats off to all of the Tenzing team for growing to the size that you have grown in such a short time. It's a wonderful product. I didn't know it. The only reason I got in touch with you guys was because I saw your TV ad and I thought, wow, I know that they're still quite a small brand, but yet they're doing TV advertising and it's such a good TV ad. Strongly recommend all of you listeners and watchers out there to take a look at it. It's up on your YouTube channel if you haven't seen it on TV, and to pick up a product because it's really lovely stuff and it's not at all what I'd expect from an energy drink. And I have steered clear of the energy category because I can't stand that taste. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Enjoy your
It's
day in
amazing.
Amsterdam. It looks much sunnier there than over here and we'll keep in touch.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.